I'm Rob Skinner, and this is the Rob Skinner Podcast. In this episode, I'm talking to Murvi Babalola. Murvi is a multi-talented disciple living and working in Boston, Massachusetts. Listen as he shares about his upbringing in Nigeria and then Ghana, his work in the ministry, his music worship, his online outreach team, and his work for the European Mission Society. All this and more on the Rob Skinner Podcast. Welcome back to the Rob Skinner Podcast. My goal is to inspire you to live a no-regrets life, make this life count, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. The Climb Small Church Leadership Conference will be held Wednesday, October 1st through Saturday, October 4th, 2025 in Lansing, Michigan. Please save the date and set your budget to join us at Joel Nagel's home church. You'll enjoy the beauty of the autumn leaves and a great time together learning and growing. And thank you so much for listening to the Rob Skinner Podcast. If you feel like you're benefiting from the program, I'd like to ask you to support it with a gift. Your support enables me to multiply disciples, leaders, and churches and inspire others to do the same through this podcast. All you need to do is go to the show notes and there's a link to support the program. Murvi, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You come highly recommended. I listen to what my listeners want to listen to, and a listener said, "Hey, I want to hear from Murvi Babalola." And so I've also seen you on the online outreach from the Boston. I see you up on stage, and I saw you also in a program for teaching how to do online outreach. And so, coupled with that recommendation, but also personal interest, I was really happy to be able to make this connection. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very humbling and very encouraging for me.
Would you mind just starting with how you became a Christian?
I grew up in our family of churches. So my story, I guess, kind of starts with my parents. My mom, she grew up in Liberia, moved to the U.S. for college in the early 80s. She became a disciple early 1980. So this was in the first year of the Boston church. When she graduated, we had just planted a church in London. She had been born in London or born in the UK, so she had British citizenship. So when she graduated, she went over there because there was a civil war happening in Liberia. There was a lot of drama there, so she couldn't go back. So she goes to London. My dad, who grew up in Nigeria, he ends up in the UK as well. He's also in London, and he becomes a disciple over there. So they meet at church. They get married. I was born in Atlanta. They had just moved to Atlanta for about a year, and I was born in that year. And then we moved to Nigeria for about 6 years, eventually moved to Ghana, where I lived for 12 years. And so, yeah, most of my upbringing was in West Africa. And my parents had worked for the church, and that was a huge part of our lives. Therefore, we actually at some point in Nigeria, we lived in the church office. So there was kind of a residential unit upstairs, and then there was a church office, right below us. So the church was always a huge part of our lives, and I grew up with that. I grew up around that, and really respected their faith. But for me, I think there were other things that I was pursuing and interested in through most of, middle school and high school and such. But coming to college, it really was just an opportunity for me to figure out. I felt like I was at two roads that were diverged, and I could choose the path of the world and just invest fully in that, or I could choose the path of God and of church and invest fully in that. And I was confused for a little bit, kind of figuring out. I think I always knew that I wanted to be a disciple, but fortunately, my campus minister at the time, Jesse Goman, he stepped in. He asked me to play pool in my dorm at Tufts University one fateful day, and that's the day that he asked me to study the Bible. And so I studied for about a month, and became a disciple. So yeah, I like to say that I came pre-converted because I was not a difficult one. I think I'd really made that decision in my heart already, but it was just a matter of actually following through with it.
So when you came to Tufts, you had it in your mind, I'm going to become a Christian at some point.
Yes.
Didn't know
Yeah,
when,
yeah.
but
Yeah, it was gonna be eventually. I think I had wanted to explore the world a little bit first, and that's what Jesse's timing protected me from. But yeah, I'd wanted to explore different things and then become a Christian, but as God would have it, fortunately, I didn't get to do too much of that.
you're really involved in online outreach now. You're also in the ministry. How does it? What did you study in college? Were you a
So I
software engineer, something like that?
No, so it's actually interesting because I mean this exposes a bit of a pattern in my life because I've always been passionate about many different things. So in college, I had two majors and a minor. So my first major was environmental health engineering, which was a combination of environmental engineering and public health. It was the way I usually phrase it is environmental engineering solutions to public health problems. That was kind of the focus of the first one. My second major was environmental communications, so more on the sustainability path, more to do with it was a combination of environmental science and communications. A lot of my focus was communicating for behavior change. We would use these psychological and marketing principles and apply them to behavior change on a community scale. So that was a lot of my focus with that. That was my second major, and then I minored in engineering management as well. So it was the kind of more the business side of engineering, managing innovation, and those sorts of things.
Okay, so then what have you done? So you're 30 now?
I'm 30 years old. Yeah, turned
Okay,
30 this
so
year.
what have you done since you graduated?
Yeah, so since graduation, I mean, through college, I was kind of raised up through our student intern program. We've got an incredible intern training program that we have in downtown Boston where I was. And so since then, I graduated, went full time into the ministry in one of our suburban regions, the South Coastal region in Boston. I was there for about 4 years building a campus ministry at Bridgewater State. And then uh, after that, moved back to our downtown Boston region, where I was part of. Eventually, I moved there just before we started doing this, but we kind of built a great team to really invest in our campus ministries, and we've seen. I mean, just God has done so many miracles in that time. It's been really inspiring, and that's been a really formative season of my life. Just to see God move in inspiring ways and to work on such a great and just really talented and inspired team. Um, and it's still going on, it's still really thriving, but as of recently, I moved to a different region in Boston. Um, and now through this whole time, I was getting involved in our online ministry. I've been a worship leader and those kinds of things. Um, but now it's kind of more officially become my job. So my current role that I started in August of this year, my current role is split into three parts. So again, following the pattern of complexity of my life, but the first part is traditional ministry. The first part is traditional ministry, which I primarily work with our campus and YoPros, maybe a little bit more with the YoPros in what's called the Metro region. It's the region just west of Boston. But yeah, in our Metro region, I work with the YoPros and a little bit with the campus. I'm also a worship leader there. The second part of the job is working with our Boston communications team. So that, we've got an incredible team that does our online presence and online outreach. Stuart Maines leads the team. He's our creative director. He's a region leader in Boston. Mari Soamura runs our social media, particularly Instagram. She's a campus minister in downtown Boston. And then Nick Petrie was formerly on staff as a minister, but now is actually full time doing communications work in Boston, which he does such an incredible job with. He does a lot of our video editing, our website. He does a lot of graphic design and so on and so forth. So it's the three of them and then me. And kind of my focus and my specialty with that is, I'm kind of I'm the organizer. I'm the systems thinker. That's kind of the way I approach things. So it's very much been the forward face of the things that we're going to present online. So making sure that things are excellent and making sure that things are running well, building processes to help us be more effective, is a lot of where I focus. But yes, so that's the second part of my job is Boston communications.
Mm.
And then the third part of my job, that's also a third of my time, is working now with the European Mission Society. And so the EMS, I'm on there as a communications consultant. So I work with them doing, again, online presence, so some social media, but videos for the purposes of our fundraising. So we produce a few videos a year to tell the story of the EMS, um, as well as running our missions ambassadors program, which has representatives in different churches around New England, that are kind of the advocates for missions work. Uh, and with that, I'm currently working on a project of researching missions engagement in the 40 and under demographic, kind of younger members of our churches that have kind of grown up in a bit of a different environment and different church culture than what we had in the 80s and 90s. So I'm working on this missions engagement research project just to help us figure out how can we really create more engagement and investment in missions with people my age, and younger. Um, so that's a big passion of mine. And then on the side of all that, that's kind of my official job. On the side of all that, I'm also I work with the Global Mission Service team doing communications for them as well. So that's where the All Nations app came from. I work with a brother named Pat Genova, and he's been incredible. He was the real kind of mastermind behind the app, but we both came on board trying to help them figure out how to, again, get our churches passionate about and excited about missions work. And yeah, as I think we mentioned already, but I'm a worship leader as well. And hopefully soon a recording artist. We're trying to work on some original songs. So hopefully those will see the light of day eventually. But there's a group of us in the Northeast US have started to write together. But many passions, many jobs, many roles. And unfortunately, I love it all. Unfortunately, it's hard to say which one is my favorite.
Wow. Okay. So I just have to ask this because one thing that you're obviously a super achiever. I mean, you've got a lot of passions and you're really going after it. First question is this: why did you choose the ministry? You've got this kind of an unrelated degree from Tufts, environmental communications, environmental systems. Why ministry? Why did you choose that path?
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's a lot of people that are going, no, I don't want to do ministry. I'm not interested.
Totally.
What is it that you go, okay, I really want this?
Yeah, initially I went through my phase of wanting to be a doctor. I went through, all a range of different things. And ultimately I think my desire has always been, how can I have the biggest impact? How can I really do something that really impacts people and changes lives? Um, so I've always kind of loved the idea of saving lives. I don't think that I had quite the temperament to be a doctor. I get kind of nervous around blood and such, so that probably was not going to be the right path for me. But it sounded exciting, and I've always been, really a systems thinker. That's the way that I approach things in life. So I think, what's the biggest impact that I can have on the system? Um, so initially, it seemed like something like medicine was going to be that. Figured it wasn't quite for me. Um, but then I found public health and thought that, okay, if you can prevent people from getting sick in the first place, then you don't even need the tertiary interventions. So I thought, oh, maybe primary care is the way to go. Um, and then as I became a disciple, I started to realize, well, okay, I can preserve and extend people's physical lives for a while, and sure, it'll have an impact. It's a positive thing to do, but ultimately, the most important thing in people's lives is going to be the fate of their soul.
Mm.
And so it really started to feel as I became a disciple that the biggest impact I could have on the system was to save souls. And not only that, but people becoming true Christians, people really following Jesus, it's going to have a tremendous impact on the world from a social standpoint, from it'll impact every facet of life. So that just became the most exciting thing to me.
Mm.
I want to make disciples, I want to build churches, and so the church has become my passion, and that's and even with everything that I've desired to do, it's been because that's the ultimate passion, is building the church in all the different ways that it can be built. So that's why I initially went into the ministry. It's why I've stayed in the ministry even as all these other things have come up. But it's just, this is the most important thing to me, and I can't imagine really doing anything else.
Mm. Another thing that comes to mind is like your dad is Nigerian, your mom's from West Africa. What is it? I mean, I talked to Colliday recently on an interview. My brother-in-law is Nigerian. He's like a super achiever in banking. And is there something about that? I mean, like, it feels like there's something going on there with people from a Nigerian
100%.
background.
Well, yes, Rob, there is something going on there. It's called Nigerian pride. You know, we're Nigerians are a unique people. Nigerians are achievers, and Nigerians are some of the most proud people on the planet. And it's no surprise. It's no and sure, I'm see, now my Nigerian side is coming out, because I'm like, hey, I think there's some genetic advantage. There must be. We're just built differently. But no, you know, I think in Nigerian culture, there very much is a mindset of achievement. There very much is a mindset of, we want to be the best, we are the best, we, you know, we excel, we achieve. And there's a pride, and there's even just a social pressure of, you're going to achieve things, you know, like Nigerians would be familiar with this. There are four accepted careers in a Nigerian household. You can either be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or a failure. Those are the only four career options that exist, you know. So no, it's very, very much built in the DNA of Nigerian culture. And it's no surprise that, I mean, any country that you go to, you'll see high achieving Nigerians in some of the most significant roles of society.
Yeah, it's definitely seems like a thing. I mean, there's certain peoples like, you know, East Indians, like there's a whole,
Yep.
like especially in California and in Texas, there's like whole areas of just Indians in the medical industry, and in, you know, then there's, I mean, I don't want to go too far up, but it just seems like something's going on there. Very, very
Absolutely.
interesting. Has to be
It's part of the culture.
part of the culture. Yeah. Talking about upbringing, your parents clearly did something right raising you. If there was one thing that you saw or you experienced growing up that helped you become a strong disciple, what was it?
Yeah, you know, I think that my parents, you know, I've always looked up to them. I've always had great respect for my parents, and felt my whole life that they were intelligent people, and that if they believed in something, that it was probably worth believing in. Um, so that was some of the foundation that I was coming from, was, hey, if this is something that's important to them, it's probably something worth paying attention to. But I think in the way that they raised me, there really wasn't a pressure of, you have to do this, or you need to become a disciple, or when are you going to study the Bible. But it very much more was raising me on truth and the right foundation, and teaching me to ask questions, and teaching me to even challenge and question my faith, making sure that it was mine, and it was independent of theirs. Um, you know, something my mom used to say that has always stuck with me, and it's a borrowed quote, but she used to say, the unchallenged faith is not worth having.
Mm.
And that always really stuck with me because it was encouraged to ask questions. It was encouraged to not believe this because you believe it and because it was taught to you, but believe it because you actually have investigated it. Believe it because you have built the foundation. You have the security of knowing that no, this is real and this is true. And there certainly were boundaries, and there certainly were rules and those kinds of things. So we were raised on the values that come along with being a disciple. Um, and I knew there was no question that they hoped for me to become a disciple, and they desired that for me. But I never felt forced to do it, and I did feel that freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So once I did have some freedom, I think it was what I naturally chose.
Yeah. It is a challenge. It's a real balancing act, and it shows a lot of discretion because I
Yeah,
mean, ultimately, God has to call a person. A person is called by God, and if the person is not called, they don't become a Christian. But at the same time, you have to
right.
provide the proper environment. You can't just go, oh, my kids will figure it out. That's not going to work either. So
Absolutely.
it's like you're right. Just got to provide a good environment, the foundation, but ultimately, a person has to decide this is my path.
Yeah. No, I think they did a great job balancing that.
Obviously. Okay, so you're a man of many talents. Okay, how do you keep that all balanced?
The short answer is probably not well. The longer answer, I guess, I think I've always been a systems thinker. I get excited about systems. I love systems. Perhaps the a burden, I suppose, that I've inherited from my parents, because they both are this way as well, is it's hard for me to see something not go well, and it's hard for me to see something and just let it drop. So I've kind of always been the one who pays attention to the details and is like, oh, and kind of sees ways that we can do things better. And it's very hard for me once I see that to not lean into it and to not just care about it. My dream and my passion is building the church, and whatever I find as I observe that as a system, whatever I see as being a place that I can have impact, or whatever I see as being the biggest need or the biggest challenge, that's what I get excited about, and that's where I lean in. So I love being on teams um because you can kind of specialize and you can kind of figure out, okay, this is what the biggest need is here, so let me lean into that. And that's kind of always how I function. So in terms of balance, I think it's just been I've been blessed to have people in my life who have really helped me um to the extent I allow them to maintain balance.
Okay.
um there are many people who check up on me, my parents included, and many of my mentors that check up on me and just make sure, hey, um are you taking on too much, in which case the answer is almost always yes. um I mean, I currently have three bosses, all of whom I think do a great job helping me with that. I'll give a special shout out to Carla Lawlensack, who has taken on the role of a new mom for me, to help me make sure that I stay balanced and stay healthy. But I also have some passions and rhythms that I try to work in, and something I'm trying to get back to is doing just spiritual retreats once a month, just to give myself a full pause and a full escape. Something that I do consistently every week is on my day off, which I'm trying to fully take. I'm trying to do better at that, so keep me accountable. But on my day off, I go to the movies every week. So even little things like that, just to have those moments of decompression and escape, are just really, really helpful for me. But I also feel like I love the things that I do, and they fulfill me. These are things that I would be doing, and a lot of them I'm not getting paid for, but yeah, these are things that I certainly don't get paid enough for, but I would do them on my own time. Let's be
Now,
honest.
are you
But yeah,
just
I would do them on my own time.
to ask a personal question? Are you dating?
I'm not. No, I'm
Okay.
single. And yes, my parents do want grandchildren, so I need to get on that. But yes, no, I'm single, and
If you could just wave a magic wand and just kind of paint the picture of your ideal partner, who would it be?
oh gosh, oh
What
that
qualities
is an
would they have?
exposing question right there. What qualities? Okay, yeah, I mean, friendship is a major value.
Good answer. Okay, good.
I think just having a life partner, especially having heard about my life, I'm sure you understand why I need this, but somebody who helps me have fun, somebody who helps me slow down, somebody who helps me, um, yeah, just kind of, yeah, not take everything too seriously, but just slow down and have a good time. And I really do believe that I would the same passion that I invest in, the same passion I invest in all of my work would be the same passion that I would want to invest in a relationship. And I've been in serious relationships before and all of that, but yes, I think those are some of the qualities I'm looking for. I do have a whole list somewhere, so but that's what I'll reveal for the world publicly.
That's fine. That's good. Thank you for sharing that. But you do hope to get married in the future at some point.
I do, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Where'd
Preferably
the
the near future if we can figure that out.
where'd your musical talents come from?
Yeah, it's that's always an interesting question for me. I guess to some extent it came from my dad. Um my dad sang in choirs growing up, and his brothers were all sort of musical. So they kind of had like a little family band situation going on for a bit. Um so certainly my love for music came from my dad. Um I wasn't really, until I became a disciple, I wasn't really doing much with my music. I did a little bit in high school. Um, but I was always I was a shower singer, I was a car singer, I was, I loved it, and I kind of thought that I sounded good, but surprising to most, I mean, I was actually I was well, for a portion of my life, I was quite shy. Um, and yeah, so I would always kind of keep those things to myself a little bit, but kind of towards the end of high school, I started to gain more confidence. I was doing theater, so I was in some of these big plays. Never did a musical though, but was in some big plays and started to develop my confidence. So by the time I came to college, I think I was very much like, oh yeah, like it's a passion of mine, it's something I love, it's something I think I can do pretty well. And then people just gave me opportunities. Like I'm grateful for a brother named Bill Rocha, who he was our worship leader in downtown Boston when I was in campus, and yeah, he taught me a lot, and was one of those people who helped build my foundation and build my confidence. Let me lead my first song on a Sunday, which was "I Love to Praise His Holy Name," and it was the only song I was allowed to lead for a bit there, and so humble beginnings, um, but yeah, but I guess the musical talent came more so from my dad.
Yeah,
But it's just something that's been a secret passion that has now become a very public passion.
that's awesome. I see your face a lot on social media. Boston's killing it in the area of online outreach, and it's so exciting. What advice would you give to a smaller church or a church that doesn't have the deepest pockets? Let's say you've got $2,000 a year to run your
Yeah,
social media. What advice would you give to a church or church leader who wants to start building their online presence, but it's got to be on a shoestring budget?
yeah, yeah. That's a great question. Well, first, a personal disclaimer. So, as I mentioned, Mari is kind of she's the guru. She's the social media guru. I actually just got on Instagram this year, um, because Stuart said that I need to try to be an influencer. And I did that for maybe 2 months, and I was like, this is kind of hard. So it's something I want to revisit, and hopefully, yes. So you can follow Murvi.babs on Instagram, and we'll see if I pick that back up. But in terms of social media for churches, I've been involved in this for so long that I've learned so much, even just from our team. Um, and honestly, we started off without much of a budget. This process started, before COVID, and we started to find success. And as we found success, we've invested where there has been success. And I think that's been a lot of our philosophy, is find the success first, not the money. Find the success first, and then kind of keep keep pushing those buttons and keep investing in those things. But for me, the first step is build a great team. Find the strengths of your church, of your group, and really what you're trying to do. And a lot of the way we've approached our social media is just love your church and display your church. If you feel like this is the most exciting thing, have your camera out, have a few people trained and ready to do this, but have the camera out and just capture the moments and capture the different things. Find the different trends that are going on online, and imitate those trends. It's been exciting to see. So in my work with the EMS, and I guess sort of with the Boston Comms team, we've started training. There's a sister, Emily Tatchell, who's in Bordeaux, France, and she's actually now she's been hired by the EMS to help the Western European churches develop their social media and online presence. And so it's been cool to see her kind of manage these different teams, many of whom have no budget, and many of whom, they don't have anything that they're able to really invest right now in it. But they have some young, talented people with kind of an eye for the right thing, who are capturing the memories. And just consistency is huge. Consistency over time is what ultimately produces results. We didn't start to see real results from our efforts until a good year at least into the process of consistently doing the right things over and over and over again. And we did a whole training workshop that you can find on our Boston Church YouTube page, if you want to kind of learn the specifics. But those are some of the principles that I would encourage. It's just some of that consistency. Start somewhere, and don't let perfection be the enemy of good enough, and of just putting something out there and being consistent with it. I think for me, that's always a challenge. That always holds me back, because I want it to be perfect. Yeah.
I love what you said there. Just like build a team, then just love your church and display your church. That's a great way to simplify it. Just want to put it on display, let people know what's there. It makes it so easy, and it reduces confusion. And then just be consistent, and then don't demand perfection. Just demand consistency. Be consistent, learn along the way. That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
What are your plans for the future? I mean, you've got so much going on. You're a song leader, you're a minister, you're a technical guy on the online outreach, you're kind of in advertising. What are your plans for the future? Are you hoping to lead a church? Are you going to stay with a large church? Like, what are your plans? What would you like to do? What would just go, that would really fire me up?
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, in a lot of ways, what I'm doing right now has it's honestly sort of a dream job for me. It's a unique combination of things. It's quite a few different things that I'm getting to do and getting to have some influence in, which has been just such a joy. And I love being in Boston. I've been in Boston now for over 12 years. I love the Boston church. It's just it's a culture of high trust and high relationships, and it's just been such an exciting place for me to be. And I've learned so much being here. But I also recognize that we're very blessed, and that we have a lot of resources, and we have a lot of people. And in some ways, I think I want my life to follow the pathway of my mom's life. That's kind of been the dream, is spend a good portion of time in Boston, then spend a good portion of time in Europe, then spend a good portion of time in Africa. So I see kind of those are the three phases of my life. And yeah, probably in the next few years, the Boston phase is going to come to an end. And my dream would be, especially now with the bridges that I'm starting to build with the EMS work in Europe, certainly, yeah, my dream would be to go somewhere in Europe, to continue this work, and then eventually, hopefully much later in life, I certainly do feel like I want to go back to Africa at some point. Um, and I feel like I would need a lot of wisdom and a lot of maturity to go back to Africa, because it could be a challenging environment in a lot of ways. But yeah, so in terms of leading a church, it's not something that I feel urgent about at the moment. I think I've found a really exciting niche and just a unique path, honestly, than a lot of other ministers, um, that I think works very well in larger churches, that works very well just kind of helping these training centers and these kind of sending centers to really thrive in a lot of the ways that sometimes we don't pay attention to.
Right.
Um, so, things like the worship and things like the online presence and those sorts of things. Um, I'd love to find a large church to land in somewhere where I can really help to develop those things and multiply what we've done in Boston.
You've got a multitude of talents and gifts. How do you deal with your ego? Like how do you just keep your hand on it and stay motivated? Like how do you tackle that? I mean, God's blessed you
Yeah.
obviously tremendously. How do you deal with that?
Yeah. It's funny. For one thing, the Lord humbles me. And he has done that over and over and over again. And there's always stuff that you want in life. I mean, we talked about my relationship status. I certainly um, hoped to be married by now and see my peers kind of in different places, and was even engaged at some point, and dealt with the heartbreak of that. And so I think God's done a lot to humble me and to keep me just in that place of humility. And I think I'm also just naturally very self-critical, and I think I'm naturally um I can be insecure about a lot of things, and um it's often uncomfortable for me to receive praise from people, because typically what I see is what I missed or what I didn't do well. And I've had to kind of even learn to accept the thank yous and accept those things, and when it gets too much, I don't even know how to respond to it.
Hmm.
Um but yes, like even with music, I don't think that I'm the best singer. I actually think that I have just a kind of above average voice, and good energy and good stage presence. So is what has made me a great worship leader. But there's so many people who are so much more talented than me. I think for me, what's different is and not different. I don't want to say it in a way that's critical of others, but I think one thing that I do appreciate about myself is that I've been willing to do it, and I'm the willing heart. I'm
Right.
the one who is there, who's willing to work, who's willing to give the time. Even though in a lot of these avenues, there are far more talented people than me that could be doing those different jobs.
Hmm.
I'm the one who is there.
You definitely seem like an achiever. It's someone who's just like, driven, super driven.
Yeah,
How do you keep grace as like the central driving force? I'm like, so that's your, what are you doing? I guess what I'd say is
yeah,
to keep the grace of God, the love of God as a primary factor rather than just the pursuit of achievement. Because I'm speaking for personal experience. This is a big challenge for me. It's like, I want to do a lot of stuff. I want to do as much as I can for God. I'll try all sorts of different things, but
yeah,
I've always got to be careful because I can lose track of the grace of God and just get involved in, just achievement, so the satisfaction of
yeah,
achievement. What are you doing spiritually to maintain and stay in the grace of God?
yeah, yeah. Wow. I mean, I find that a lot of the books that I read um, are geared towards that. A lot of spiritual books, kind of my supplemental study. Um, one of my favorite books and one of the most life changing books that I've read is a book called With. I think that's by Sky Jathani. And that was just an incredible book, just to just orient myself in, yeah, how does God see me? What does God value in me? Um, it's not about doing things for God, but really more emphasizing just being with God. and learning to just be rather than just being a doer. Um, and and certainly, and this is not, again, this is not something that I think that I'm doing a very good job of right now. It's something that I need to and really intend to reinvest myself in. But when I do a great job with rest, and when I do a great job with those kinds of rhythms, it really does help me remember that, hey, even when I do nothing, the world continues to turn. God remains in control,
Mm.
and he's still sovereign. I do believe that he appreciates the work that I do, and I do believe that he appreciates the passion and the investment that I've given. But more importantly, he just loves me,
Mm.
and that's where the focus can be when you rest well, and when you have those times of just being with God. Um, so I try to pump my head with that as much as I can,
Mm-hmm.
because I need to hear it constantly,
Right.
and I need to be reminded of it constantly. It's not something that comes naturally to me at all. But between various podcasts that I listen to, various books that I read, I think that that certainly really helps
Mm.
me to stay grounded in that.
Right. Aside from your conversion, what's been the most significant epiphany, event, um, activity that's really shaped your thinking and your walk with Christ?
Yeah.
Have there been a
I mean,
setback or a difficulty or a
yeah,
challenge? Any what's can you point to a moment you go, whoa, that really left a mark. That really changed my thinking, might change my life.
yeah. I mean, certainly my broken engagement, I think, was one of the most uh, life shaping experiences of my life. It was, yeah, I think it one really connected me with heartbreak and just hurt. Um, Up until that point, I don't think hadn't really experienced any significant kind of loss, um, and just real grief. Um, and there's always a part of me that kind of wonders, hey, I mean, people have lost loved ones and all kinds of things like that, and you're sitting here crying about a breakup. And sometimes in my insecurity, I can kind of belittle the pain and belittle the experience. And um but yeah, it changed me. And it softened me, it humbled me, it just helped me to um I think grief is a part of life, and it's something that everybody experiences in some capacity. And I think it's helped me to even be there for people and help people through their own experiences. Um, but yeah, and no,
Mm.
it's
And
hard to say I feel grateful for the experience, but but in some senses, I do feel grateful for just some of the impact that it's
mm,
had, and what it's allowed me to do, and the ways that it shaped my character.
right.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. When you look forward, what advice would you give to a person who really wants to make this life count? It's clear that you're doing all that you can to make as big a difference for God as possible.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to another person who's like, yeah, I want to make a difference. I want to live a no regrets life.
Yeah. I one of the big things for me is just, and these are all things that I've really been working on, especially in the past few years. One thing is just asking better questions and making fewer assumptions. Um, you just learn a lot more that way. And I've always been attracted to knowledge, and it's something that I really care a ton about. Um, but wisdom and knowledge is really developed oftentimes through asking good questions and making few assumptions. I think I've also really tried to embrace complexity in life, adopting more of a both and mindset rather than an either or mindset. I think it just opens you up to many different avenues. And then the last thing that I would say with that too is just working hard. I'm not the expert on rest. I would love to listen to the episode where somebody who is the expert on rest is able to share some wisdom on that. Um, but I work hard, and I really think that if you want to achieve, if you want to accomplish, if you want to really make your life count, you got to give, you got to invest, you got to put in the work.
Mm.
So yeah, those are some of the things that I would say.
Murvi, thanks for joining me on the program. Really appreciate it, and all the best to you in your work and your future. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, thank you. Thanks again for having me on. I really appreciate the work that you do through this podcast, and yeah, I just hope that some aspect of my story and some aspect of my experiences will touch people and will help them.
Thanks for listening. Here's how you can help support the program. First, let your friends know about the podcast. Secondly, read and review one of my books, either How to Plant and Grow a Church or Courage, How to Make This Life Count. You can find them both on Amazon. If you can, please give them a review. It helps people to find the books. Finally, support the program with a gift today. The link is in the show notes because my goal is to inspire you to make this life count, live a no regrets life, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. Have a great day and make this life count.